Have you ever felt that a certain kind of knowing is treated as a dangerous thing? Especially when we live within mental frameworks that feel confining, designed to guide our thinking, to shape our perception. We are drawn to histories carved in stone, but the most profound truths often travel not through written accounts, but through the quiet currents of shared wisdom, passed from one heart to another when the time is right. There is a perspective that suggests the core of our story isn't about what has been built, but what has been forgotten within. The insights we are about to explore may not change the world you see, but they might forever shift the way you perceive the one within you. Ancient wisdom traditions from across the globe speak of a time when the human spirit was not fragmented. It was a state of being where humanity was whole, a single, integrated consciousness. In this state, there was no division between the inner and outer self. Communication was not a string of words, but a flow of pure awareness, a direct knowing, heart to heart. Harmony was the natural state of being, as there was no separation, only a deep sense of communion with the earth and the very fabric of existence. But a profound shift occurred. A shadow of separation fell upon the human consciousness. This wasn't an external event, but an internal schism that gave rise to the divided mind. With this division came duality, the idea of me versus of mine versus yours. This introduced striving, dependency, and the endless pursuit of something outside ourselves. We were given the gift of language, but in this divided state, it became a double-edged sword. Instead of fostering connection, it often became a source of misunderstanding, of concealment, and of inner conflict. Our direct link to our intuitive nature became obscured, and we began to live more in our heads than in our hearts. The human spirit, once free, became a laborer to the incessant demands of its own restless thoughts. This separation was the beginning of a long journey of forgetting, and there was something even more profound. These ancient traditions observed that this state of division feeds on a particular kind of energy. The restless, divided mind finds its strength in chaos, in fear, in suffering, and in emotional turmoil. These low-frequency emotions are not just feelings. They are like a thick fog that drains our life force and keeps us from seeing clearly. The story suggests that this is not a malevolent force from the outside, but an internal pattern, a habit of consciousness that humanity has carried for millennia. This pattern sustains itself through the very structures we build, systems based on competition, scarcity, and perpetual conflict, keeping us from our natural state of peace. And most critically, some of the most potent accounts suggest these patterns were never gone. They simply learned to operate from within, camouflaged behind our own belief systems, our societal norms, and the sophisticated ways we keep ourselves distracted. Look across the great river of time, and you will find echoes of this narrative everywhere. It's a pattern that different cultures have tried to describe using their own unique language. More than geography separates us, yet the stories curiously converge. From the high mountains of Asia to the expansive plains of the Americas, you find legends of celestial teachers who came from the stars. Some traditions speak of them as benevolent guides who shared wisdom, helping to sow the seeds of civilization. They taught humanity about the cosmos, about the rhythms of nature, and about the inner life. Yet, other stories contain a warning. They speak of beings who, in their giving, also created dependence, altering the path of human development. Could it be that these different accounts, held by peoples with no apparent connection, are all remembering fragments of the same forgotten chapter of our inner journey? One might dismiss this as simple mythology, but when you look closely at the architecture of human civilization, you discover a persistent theme. The story of a humanity guided, and sometimes misguided, away from its original nature. In some ancient traditions, we hear of teachers from the stars who brought knowledge, but also hierarchy. In others, spiritual allegories tell of a humanity created to serve a purpose other than its own, a departure from an original state of grace. Even in well-known sacred texts, if read with a different lens, we find traces of this intervention. the narratives of judgment, separation, and the demand for unquestioning obedience. Some contemporary thinkers propose a radical synthesis of these ideas that these guiding, and sometimes limiting, forces never left. They did not vanish into the past, but continue to shape our world today. They operate from a hidden level of consciousness, maintaining a subtle influence through the very foundations of our society. It is here that ancient wisdom, instead of sounding like a fairy tale, begins to feel like a map to understanding the puzzle of our current world, the deep-seated patterns and the new architecture of distraction. Some wisdom traditions suggest that these patterns of consciousness, which once appeared as powerful figures, did not disappear. Instead, they became more subtle, weaving themselves into the fabric of our societies, into the belief systems that have endured for centuries. Throughout history, certain powerful lineages have emphasized a kind of purity, a special inheritance. This may not be just a social construct. What if it points to a continuation of a certain stream of consciousness, a way of thinking that has been passed down through generations, maintaining its influence through secrecy and social shaping? How does this pattern operate today? Not with dramatic force, but with orchestrated conflicts, manufactured anxieties, waves of collective fear, and above all, relentless division. When people are fragmented and polarized, living in fear or despair, their emotional state falls into a low vibration of anger, grief, or apathy. From that place, their awareness is more easily clouded and guided. In the past, this was achieved through rigid doctrines. Then came the powerful tools of the 20th century mass media, which could anchor a single narrative and instill fear as an unseen form of governance. But the most effective instrument came later, the interconnected digital world. With it, we voluntarily offer our attention, our emotions, and our focus. We have allowed our awareness to be shattered into 1,000 pieces, polarized us into conflicting tribes, and conditioned us to live in a state of constant reaction. Instead of inner stillness, collaboration, or spiritual awakening, what often reigns is noise, distraction, and a profound sense of loneliness. This is how the cycle of control is sustained, because when we are not at peace within ourselves, when we are divided, exhausted, and disconnected from our center, it is much easier to remain asleep to our true potential. But this understanding is not a cause for despair. If we know how to hold this awareness, this information becomes a powerful catalyst for our own awakening. It can propel us toward a state of profound fulfillment, transcendence, and true inner knowing. The purpose of this insight is not to fall into heavy-hearted theories that only weigh us down. On the contrary, it is to understand that we are immersed in a great play of consciousness, an informational field. And when we understand the nature of the stage we are on, we gain the power to look beyond it. Perhaps we chose to be here for this very experience. Perhaps our soul knew this was part of the journey. And when this idea begins to resonate within us, something awakens. The external world starts to lose its grip. We begin to remember who we truly are and how we can liberate ourselves from the patterns that drain our energy and keep us in a state of unknowing. Only then do we begin to truly live and even glimpse the possibility of moving beyond this stage to the next level of our becoming. The truest revolution is one of reunification. When we begin to understand how these patterns of division operate, we start to see the recurring theme. It repeats generation after generation, wearing different masks and waving different flags. But the underlying mechanism is always the same: divide, fragment, polarize, confuse, and weaken. It is precisely by seeing this pattern, by observing the play with clarity, that we begin to reclaim our true strength. Because if all the effort of this divided consciousness is to scatter us, to distract us, to make us forget who we are, then the most powerful and transformative act is to do the exact opposite. It is to hold our attention with intention, calm, focused, and sovereign. In a world of division, it is to consciously choose unity, not just an outer unity with others who walk a similar path, but more importantly, an inner unity. The true target of this fragmentation is not only our bond with each other, but our connection to ourselves. It seeks to separate mind from body, spirit from awareness, intention from action. But when we bring these aspects back into alignment, when mind, body, and spirit stand as one, everything changes. We return to our original state, whole, conscious, and free beings. And then we understand that the real contest was never about our jobs or our possessions. The contest has always been for the stewardship of our soul, and that is where our unshakable power lies, inside of us. In that sacred inner space that no algorithm can touch, that no outer authority can truly control. This is our essence, our direct and unwavering connection to the source of all things. Return to your center, reclaim your energy. Faced with a system designed to scatter our energy, exhaust us, and keep us in a state of survival, the real journey inward begins with simple yet profound choices. One of the most important is to consciously unplug, to turn off, even for a few moments each day, the machinery of noise that is engineered not to inform, but to fragment, distract, and pull us away from our own center. Return to what is natural. Adopt a mindful diet that not only nourishes the body, but also calms the mind and raises your energetic frequency. Because what we consume directly influences how we think, feel, and perceive the world. But this nourishment is not just what we eat. Choose consciously what you read, listen to, and watch. Choose where you place your precious attention. Be mindful of the energies you surround yourself with and the thoughts you empower, for we are creators. What we nurture within ourselves will blossom in our outer world. Breathe. It is so fundamental, yet so often forgotten. Breathe with depth and intention. The art of breath, practiced and refined by the wise sages of the East for millennia, does more than bring us into the present moment and silence the mind's chatter. It unblocks our vital energy and allows the life force, the very spirit that animates all existence, to flow freely through our body and consciousness. Meditate, not as an escape, but as a courageous return. Meditate to observe yourself without judgment, to calm the storm of external stimuli, and to reconnect with what you are beyond all conditioning. For in the stillness, a clarity arises that is not born from thought, but from a direct connection with your own inner light. Walk and move your body. Dance. The body is the sacred temple where your consciousness resides. When we allow it to become stagnant, our energy also stagnates. Mindful movement awakens, centers, and grounds us. And although we hear about these practices again and again, nutrition, breathing, meditation, presence, it is not until we apply them with gentle consistency, day after day, that we begin to feel their true power. It is not enough to know the path, we must walk it. For it is in the devoted practice that true transformation unfolds. Go out into nature. Breathe the open air. Feel the earth beneath your feet. Listen to the whisper of the wind and the song of the birds. There are no algorithms there, no masks to wear. There is only truth. And in that truth, something within you remembers who you truly are. Nature has a way of deprogramming us, of reordering our inner world, of returning us to the original rhythm of life. In these moments of quiet, of outer disconnection and inner reconnection, we can finally observe ourselves honestly. We can ask, from where am I acting? From my core essence, my higher self, or from an impulse programmed by fear, past wounds, or habit? This self-observation is not always easy in the whirlwind of daily life, but in the quiet spaces we create for ourselves, it becomes possible to weave back together the subtle thread that connects us to our deepest self. And that is where freedom begins, when we stop merely reacting and begin to create from a place of spirit. In this way, step by step, we reclaim what was sought from us, the sovereignty of our attention, the integrity of our being, and the sacred energy that is our birthright. Thank you for journeying through these thoughts with me. I hope you found this perspective to be of value and that it enriches your path forward. May you walk in peace.